Welcome to our latest edition of Ballogy Sessions. Me and Daniel here kicking it with Bret Burchard. Bret is the co-founder of the mindset development company ChampionShift and co-author of Catching Confetti, developing the mindset of a champion. He helps athletes and coaches tap into mental states to improve their confidence and resilience. He coached in the NBA for 10 seasons, all with the Phoenix Suns, most recently as the head coach of their minor league affiliate. Bret, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. It's good to see you guys.
Awesome. Well, we like to start off our sessions by just throwing out some rapid fire questions, just to break the ice and for our audience to get to know you. DA, kick off the first one, and I got after you.
All right, Bret, what is you and your wife's, because I know that you're married, what are your favorite pastime? Your favorite thing to do?
Yeah, our favorite pastimes are definitely anything outdoors. So hiking, we play a lot of sand volleyball, some tennis, but definitely anything that gets us outside.
Awesome. That's really cool. I like being outdoors as well with my wife. Bret, what is one simple way to improve your mental approach to the game? If you could give one little simple tidbit, what would that be?
Yeah, start by noticing emotions and feelings. Not have to react on them. Don't have to deny them, stuff them down. Just pay attention. Be aware of what am I feeling at this moment. That'd be a great place to start.
That's good.
Awesome. What is a particular season, Bret, that stands out to you, either as a player or as a coach, as just like an iconic season that you won't forget?
Wow. So many to choose from. I think in college, my first 2 years in college were pretty special, especially my first season, just the newness of being in college basketball and all that. But then we also won our conference championship tournament on the road. We went to the national tournament. And so that whole experience was pretty special. And we had a special group of guys, a really close team.
And weren't the school you went to, if I'm not mistaken, you guys have a pretty unique thing that you guys do, right?
Yeah.
That you guys have gained some notoriety for?
Yeah, Taylor University, known nationally for Silent Night, tradition you'll see around December on ESPN every so often. Where everyone stays quiet for the first 10 points, and then it just erupts into mayhem for the rest of the game once we score our 10th point.
Oh my gosh, that started at your school. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people try to copy it, but it's not like the original, huh?
Man, it is a wild, people will say all the time, oh, it must be so cool to play in a game, but it's so eerie. There's 2,500 people packed, on the sidelines, and no one's saying a word. It feels like you're in practice. It's so weird. And then 10 points hits and it's bedlam and you can't hear a thing. And so just like it swings the other direction, and it's like that for the rest of the game. It doesn't, it's not like there for 5 minutes they go crazy. It's that way for the rest of the night. It's wild.
They're saving all their energy up.
Exactly.
The first 10 minutes, their energy drinks or whatever they need to do to keep it going.
And the game is always the Friday before finals week. And so everyone's got all this like pin up energy, stress, anxiety for finals coming up. And so they just let it all out.
That's perfect.
Man, that's crazy. What my question for you is, if you had, it may be that gym, but what's your favorite gym to put some shots up, or where do you feel like the most nostalgic in your basketball journey? What gym is that?
Well, so it's at Columbia College in Columbia, Missouri. It's where my dad coached for over 30 years, and he built a little dynasty there. It was the gym I was raised in, and it's gone under renovation since I was a kid, but that was my home court. And it's one of those gyms where even now, if I haven't touched a ball in a year, I'll go back there and I'll make my first shot every time because it's so comfortable. I think I still have a key. Don't tell anyone. I think I still have a key to the gym.
Cut that part out, George.
Yeah, we'll cut that one. Man,
that's awesome.
I feel like everyone has their own little secret space, man, where in their basketball journey, if they get into that place, it's like a secret, like Superman's lair, places like that where you just feel like right at home. So
Exactly.
Totally. Well, last one here, and then we can jump into our, kind of more official questions. But you've co-authored a couple books, and then you've recently launched Catching Confetti, How to Develop the Mindset of a Champion. Do you plan to write more books in your future?
Yeah, it's something that like I can't not do. This was the 5th book that I've been a part of, authoring and publishing. And after each one, you get to the end of the project and I think I'm never doing that again. It's like, it becomes so hard and just, it's just not easy. It takes a lot of work, a lot of energy, a lot of emotions. So I get to the end of it and I say, I'm never doing that again. And then like 4 months later, I get inspired with a new idea. Like, I know what the next book is. And
awesome.
So we go for it. So I'm sure it's going to happen. It's this love-hate relationship with it, but you get to the point where you got something and you can't not do it. And so I don't know what it is yet, but another one will come, I'm sure.
That's beautiful. Awesome. Judging off the rhythms that you've been through, the chances are there'll be some more projects coming in your future.
Yeah, I'm sure there's about a year out and the next one will hit the shelves.
Gotcha. Awesome.
Man, that's so cool. So besides spending your time writing, you've been coaching for a long time, and I see that you're a disciple of a coach as well as your dad. So Bret, why did you start coaching?
Yeah, I think it's probably a little nature and nurture. Was born into it, born on the first day of my dad's summer basketball camp, raised in the gym. My sister and I took naps in the ball cages. Like, it was just, that was our lifestyles. After school, walk across the street and do my homework at the scores table when my dad is leading practice. I mean, it's just what I grew up in. But then also, some nurture there, where the 2 most influential people in my life would be my dad and my college coach. And both of those guys were highly successful coaches, Hall of Fames, names on the court, winning, but also had really deep impacts on people. And I saw, okay, here's an avenue that you can really make a difference in someone's life. And I think that's what attracted me most about coaching is the impact you can have on somebody in some part of their journey, through competition and teaching and the life lessons you can learn through sport. And so I think that was probably the deepest draw for me to get into coaching and why I like to do it so much.
That's awesome. And I think, I've gotten to, for anyone listening, I've gotten to play for Bret. And so I know, experientially some of his coaching style. But Bret, how would you assess your coaching style or your really approach to the game and coaching and teaching in 3 words? It doesn't have to necessarily be limited to that, but we'd just love to hear some kind of simple thoughts, some ideas.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to hear you answer that question about me. But
I will. A tyrant. No.
Well
not
played,
at all.
Well played.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I did it in 3 words or less, I'd have to have more time to give you a better answer. But my first thought would be, I patiently teach decision-making. And decision-making is hyphenated, so it counts as 1 word.
Yeah,
Totally.
But I think that would summarize kind of my approach, my thought process, and my personality going into it.
Yeah, and I would say I experienced that, and if you wanted to speak a little bit more to that, you're free to. You don't have to only be limited to just the 3, but just to kind of get us started, that's the experience that I had, that it didn't ever seem like you were taking out your stresses on players. It seemed like you were at least aware, and not that you didn't get upset or like, it's not like you're a robot, but somehow we're able to, it seemed like each of the things you do were calculated and came from a place of it was meaningful as opposed to just like a reaction all the time, which is how I've experienced a lot of coaching. Something bad happens, coach's reaction is kind of like that thing you're expecting. You kind of brace for that. And, it was a pleasant experience, being there, because that wasn't my experience, and it freed me up to kind of grow and things like that. So I would agree, for what it's worth, in, a patient approach to teaching decision making.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. It is something I take pride in, and I think it's a secret sauce for me is patience. And, I told my players all the time is that you're probably not going to play for a more patient coach than me, letting guys learn and experience and play through some mistakes. And because for me, coaching is about teaching and development, and it's about seeing guys progress over time and improve. And the only way to do that is to go through some experiences, and you're going to make some mistakes, and you're going to forget, and you're going to lose. And then you have to learn from that. And it doesn't help when everything's anxious and stressed and pressured to be able to have that deep learning experience. So I think the higher the stress and the level goes and the pressure goes, now it becomes like, just don't screw up or else. And you don't really learn much from that. You're just trying to protect from any scarring. So giving players a space to learn and grow and develop, and then learn how to make their own decisions and apply what they're learning, because ultimately the players are playing the game, not the coaches. And so you got to put them in a position to make good decisions and make the right decisions and use their talents and gifts to the best of their abilities.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Even getting a chance to play against teams that you've coached in the G League for a few years, I never noticed any players looking over their shoulders. Like, is he about to take me out? Like, everyone plays.
Yeah.
When we play the Suns, everyone plays so free. Everyone plays, obviously disciplined, but as disciplined as the G League can get, But it's very free flowing, and also. You can tell that the players just come in the game confident, and they can only do that if they have a confident coach and the coach that empowers them. So I definitely see that as a reflection of your coaching style, just from being an opponent for a few years. So,
yeah. That's awesome.
No, definitely. So we kind of answered this question, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to almost speak to it, of what maybe you've been coached by or you've seen. Not to throw shade at anyone, but what would be your your method, like your methodology? How does that separate you from the average coach? What are some ways that you coach that are different? We kind of touched on it, but how would you say it in your own words?
Yeah, I think for me, coaching is about teaching. And so maybe where I differ a little bit from other coaches is positives and negatives to every style and approach, but not getting so caught up in the winning and losing and the results and the outcomes, and allowing some space for it to be a little messy, so we can go through that development and learning process. And like I said, there's pros and cons to both. There's some detriments to that, where not necessarily so like drive such a hard line and maybe more militaristic as some coaches might be, that come out with more wins or have more successful seasons from a win-loss perspective. But I do see it as, I see my role as a coach to teach and develop, and winning is a part of that. And you definitely want to have success, but I think the process to getting there, focuses on development of the players and the people, more than just, did we win? Did we lose? All right, we lost. We're bad. Get on the line and start running. It's more about a process of growth. So that's probably where I differentiate myself the most.
And what do you, if you don't mind me even going just a little bit deeper, why is it that you've chosen to plant your flag in the ground, so to speak, there, as opposed to getting swept into this, success being measured solely by did we win or lose, because I feel like that's a I think Bob Huggins said the only way to coach is fear or something like that. Like it's the only true motivator at the end of the day. And sadly, I think whether it would be openly agreed with or not, I think that's been a majority of my experience, that we're afraid of losing, so that motivates us to do this or that. So why is it that you chose not that?
Yeah. Some of it's my upbringing, between my dad and college coach, they were just so focused on developing people and teaching and being teachers. And they're, saw themselves as part of the education process of people. And, both of them had great success, and won a ton of games and championships and everything. So, that process for them played out well. And I think, I guess for me, for just like a life fulfillment, what gives me the most joy, is it that we won, 60% of our games, we won so many titles, or is it the impact we had on people along the way, and who they became in the process? And I just think if I got to the end of my career and counted up all my wins, I'm not sure I'd be as satisfied or fulfilled as players calling me, 2-3 years later, be like, man, I just applied this in this crazy part of my life because of something you taught me 3 years ago. That's really special when you get those kind of, that kind of feedback. So I just think kind of a personal fulfillment that having the impact on the people was a higher priority for me.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, that's beautiful because you don't see that often. One of my favorite coaches of all time is John Wooden, and he didn't want to be called, coach. He wanted to be called a teacher, and just that philosophy of understanding, legacy, in my opinion, and you can be known for wins and losses, of course, but like you said, I kind of would fall in that same boat of just that thought process is, how many lives that actually impact, because that's what's going to carry on. The wins and losses of the trophies, those are going to fade, but the impact that you make on, players' hearts and minds, I believe that's what truly matters, man. So that's really great to hear you say that. So, in that vein as well, what would be some common misconceptions about being a high-level coach? Because it does seem like it is about wins and losses, and coaches get fired, for losing a lot of games. And what would be some things that you think people have some preconceived notions about that are kind of totally off?
Yeah. And, and it is a results-based thing. Like if you don't win games, then you're not going to last long in the profession. And so you do have to find a way to win. I think the approach and the process there is what can differentiate, how you go about it. I think the two things that come to mind about misconceptions, one, especially like on a college coaching level, that you have to be an a-hole to be a good coach. I think the perception, if you ever see a B-roll video of coaches or snapshots of coaches, it's always them like beat red, screaming, in a ref's face, yelling at a player. And like, this is the image we get of successful coaching. Yeah. And it's a snapshot of a moment, but you probably don't see everything behind the scenes, like the love, the nurturing, the patience, the teaching that happens, the relationship building. And so I think there's a misconception there of like, to be a coach, I got to stomp up and down the sidelines and yell and scream and get mad at the refs. And, this is what it means to be a coach. And that's the public presentation of it, but it's not what's really happening. And then the second thing, misconception from high level coaching is this thought that just because you coach in the NBA, you're a better coach than everyone else in the country. And it's just not true. There's good coaches in the NBA. There's great coaches in college. There's great coaches in high school. And one thing my college coach taught us that really resonates with me is excellence knows no level. So what it takes to be excellent, the demands are the same, whether you're in high school, college, or pro. It's a lack of, discipline and unselfishness and a commitment and a toughness. And all those things matter. To win a state title, you need those kind of qualities there to win an NBA title. You need those kind of qualities there. And so the level isn't so much of judging the quality of the coach as, are you able to bring the best out of your team for the demands that are in front of you? And so I think that's the other misconception there, is just that NBA coaches are better than every other coach. It's just not true.
Yeah, and I think they probably equate that to paychecks and things like that. And
yeah,
man, that's really good.
That's good. And I think, Bret, in, like I said, and getting to play for you and then hearing some of your philosophy and your approach to coaching. And then, I'm a huge fan, have read through multiple times and then returned to Catching Confetti, in different chapters and, the different mindsets that you talk about. I'm interested to hear a quote unquote success story, because it sounds like you're defining success as the depth, at which you were able to impact somebody and the transformation that took place, as opposed to success being like a successful season, win and loss, or something like that. So I'd be interested to hear, can you share with me a success story, the way that you're defining it, through applying these things, whether it was with a player or even a whole team, or something you saw the most transformation?
Yeah. I don't know if I'd call it the most transformation, but just kind of an anecdote that happened recently that made me feel really good is my first year in the G League. I had a player for the entire season. He was on assignment from the NBA. And in college, he had this restriction on him where he wasn't allowed to dribble more than twice. And for him to develop and have a career as a professional basketball player, he was going to have to grow more of his game. And so we created space for him in our practice environments where he had to be a primary ball handler. And in the middle, I remember very vividly, in the middle of a practice, we're scrimmaging, and I make him be the point guard, and he gets picked twice for a layup the other end. And you know how that goes in practice. Both of you guys have been in that situation. Like, now the trash talking starts and everyone's getting hyped. And
there's nothing worse than that moment in like life.
Yeah, he feels so embarrassed, and and like the natural reaction there was be like, I'm never doing that again, so I don't feel that embarrassment again. And I went up to him and I said, look, like, this is part of your growth. You're gonna have to go through this struggle phase to be able to add this to your skills for the rest of your career. Well, I was on the phone with him. He's playing overseas now, and because of COVID and everything that happened, all three of their point guards were out of the game, and he had to play point guard for the game. And he was like, I feel so better, like so more confident and prepared for this moment because having done that with you 2 years ago. And it's like, all right, that's, we didn't win a lot of games that year. But that's the payoff. Like that's why we did what we did, to prepare him for this moment 2 years later. So that's cool. I hang my hat on those kind of things. As far as like the future payoffs for what we're doing. It's a hard part about being a teacher and being a coach is you don't always get the direct fruits of your labor.
Right.
But to be able to see that for him pay off later down the road is rewarding for me.
Right. That's awesome. And one other, just as a follow-up, to that, I contrast that story with a similar story that doesn't have the same ending in your book, where, high-level NBA guy playing for the Suns, we're not naming names, but he would work on his shot by himself.
Yeah.
And then if other people came in, he would kind of just hide and minimize and step back, but would put up kind of a false facade and say, talk trash to people who were shooting or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's almost that the fear, because I'm sure maybe an experience happened where he was trying his best or something, and it didn't do well, or somebody beat him, and maybe instead of stepping up and facing that failure and the pain and working with that, it sounded like maybe he stepped back. So would you just speak just a second to that? Because that was a story that really stood out to me. and it's a sad story, but it's so key for all of us. We've all been there.
Right. It is that idea of, in a sense, facing your fears, but recognizing what the fear actually is. And it's this fear of vulnerability or being exposed, or embarrassed for a moment. And I think we're all fighting for that belonging and that acceptance and that proof that we're good enough. And to be able to let that guard down and say, I'll be okay, even if I don't perform well right now. That opens you up to the growth, that you can lean into that moment and endure the struggle phase on the process of skill building. And if you can't do that, another great gem from my college coach, competition will always tell you the truth. And so eventually, if you avoid addressing those skill gaps, eventually competition is going to reveal it anyway. And so better to lean into that now and endure the struggle phase and get better at those skills. So then we don't have to feel that pain later when competition exposed us for our lack of trying earlier on.
Man, that's so good. And I think just you have so many keys in your book. So obviously we won't go on and on, but the point that you said, one thing that I think it'd be key for anyone listening, one of the things that you say is key is that picture a situation, a game coming up or a season or whatever, and picture it going as amazing as it possibly could. You win every single game. You're the MVP, like just comically amazing, and picture who you are at the end of that. And then do the same exercise, but everything could not go worse. You lose every game and maybe even you get injured or whatever. And if at the end of those two experiences, the two people are drastically different people, then something is off in there. Would you just speak really quickly to that?
Yeah. For me, we can all agree that A, we will face adversity at some point, and B, overcoming adversity will make us better and stronger. But what do we do to prepare for adversity? It's like, all right, when I get there, I'm just going to have to, buckle up and hang on and get through it. But right now I can prepare my mindset, to face that adversity and overcome that adversity. And being able to separate, how I see myself and who I am, call it our identity, from the outcomes of the performance and belonging and making the team and all the results-based things that happen in our lives. If we can separate ourselves from that and see ourselves as more than just our results, it sets us up to be able to endure those struggle phases. And that's what the exercise is about, let me see it going really well. Let me see it going really bad. And if my feelings about who I am are drastically different in those two scenarios, that's a clue that something's off about where I'm placing my identity, that the results will define who I am. And if that's how you're going to go into it, then you're going to get blown with the wind, and it's going to be an emotional roller coaster for you. You're setting yourself up for crisis there.
Wow. Thank you for saying that. Cause a lot of players are going to be tuning into this, and, I think it's not taught enough to understand the winds and the waves of the game. Just because expectations are so high for, individuals and people, especially if they're good at a young age. I mean, anything that's below, that standard, they crash and fall. So why do you believe that it's hard for players to be aware? Like what do you think is the biggest hindrance to just self-awareness as a basketball player in specific?
Yeah. Well, I think we're overly consumed with two things. It's am I doing a good job, and do I belong? And we're constantly our awareness is constantly swirling around those two. It's like, prove that I'm good enough, and I'm worthy based on my performance, and prove that I belong based on my acceptance and my relationships. And so that clouds a lot of our thinking. And so and that drives our decision-making and our reactions. And, just like the player who needed to work on his shooting, and anytime someone walked him practice, he bailed on the workout. It's this is saying that I don't belong or I'm not good enough. And that's, I guess, lowering the ceilings on who we can become and how good we can get. So if we can strip away those, like stop worrying so much about, do they like me and am I doing a good enough job, and just focusing on who you're becoming and growing your skills and growing different personality traits that you might be weaker in. All that opens up an awareness to where you can continue to get better.
Man, that's great. It kind of reminds me of obviously, a lot of hoopers, I know yourself, has watched The Last Dance, and when they won the championship, Mike was iconically behind a keyboard, like or a piano, and he was like playing the piano with a cigar in his mouth, and they were like, Mike, are you coming back for next year? What are you doing? He's like, just be in the moment. Be in the moment. That was like, me and Daniel were talking about that, when that came out, and we're like, wow, that is incredible. And obviously Mike is the pinnacle of, athletic performance in our sport. What is the biggest, or who do you think just has that same mentality, not necessarily like Mike, but who is, like, in your opinion and what you've seen being in the NBA, if you could say a few players, who would be those players who you believe are just mentally just focused and aware of themselves and their game?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the guys that are at the top, of what they do are in that space. I think LeBron is the guy that comes to mind just because of what he's accomplished and what he's able to do. But even for him, you saw this trajectory over his career of probably at early stages trying to prove that I am something, or that I belong in this stage, and then they finally, like, he got to a point where I don't have to prove anything to anybody else. I already belong. Now let me just see how great I can get at my craft. The other guy who stands out to me is Donovan Mitchell. And there was a beautiful clip. He did an interview with Shaq after a game inside the NBA. And Shaq's like, I said it on the show that I don't think you have what it takes. And Donovan's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, didn't phase him, and it's this, this outside noise of saying, you're not good enough. You don't have what it takes. And most guys would be like, I'll show you, I'll prove you wrong, and go out there and hustle harder and all this insecure energy trying to prove somebody wrong. And he was like, how you define me, you can't. Like, I define myself. And so for you to say that it doesn't faze me, I'm going to keep doing what I do and continue to get better. So that was a really poignant response, I thought, by Donovan.
Definitely. That was, yeah, I remember that clip and seeing that, because they always like to stir up some stuff, and it kind of rolled off of him. And I think, he had a huge impact his rookie year, and, the ball was in his hand a lot, but you could tell he had that confidence instilled from the get. Yeah. Before we get into, our final questions, I wanted to ask, I've been itching to ask just because it kind of popped in my head, one more rapid fire question. Yeah. And this could be, you're coaching the best, just the best of the best. You guys have the expectation for your team is to win a championship that year. Who would be your dream team coaching staff? Just give me three names that would be your dream team coaching staff to go out and win an NBA championship.
Wow. Talk about putting on the spot.
And Bret, you could say the Phoenix Suns coaching staff if you're still with them or something. If that's the right answer, you're trying to get another contract with them, and then we could say separate from that.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, can I say my dream team players and draft you two guys to be on the team with me?
Man.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I'll put it this way. Some stuff that I really admire in coaches, Brad Stevens, just his poise and, I think that's the best word for it. Like, his poise about how he goes about the game, and his intelligence really stand out to me. Guys like, Greg Popovich, who have just built really strong cultures, are something to be admired. And then, there's so many good coaches. What what Doc Rivers does with uniting a team and getting guys to buy in and believe, Nate McMillan, every time he takes over a team, like those guys are good and hard to play against. Man, that's tough to nail down a few, because there's just so many good coaches with some really good qualities throughout the league.
I've thought about that question for myself a few times. And mine would probably be, if I had to pick three, because I'm doing all time, John Wooden, I'm doing Lenny Wilkins, and then I'm probably going to do, just because, of Mike and the Bulls and the Lakers, Phil. I want to see like his mindset and how he just gets his players to play in that unique way. So that would be my three. But
good choices.
Yeah, I love
and I would even say, Bret, you kind of it's hard to put a finger on it and even like put it in a box, but it seems like a couple of those coaches, Jordan, that you referenced, but specifically Phil Jackson, kind of almost brings this like Zen, just a much different approach than you're typically used to seeing, like in a very physically focused material world where it's like about playing hard and being tougher and being stronger and all of those things. He seemed to take this like backdoor approach to where it's about surrender and it's about fully evaluating the possibilities and being okay with that. And Michael Jordan even said in The Last Dance, he said, someone asked, are you afraid to take the last shot at all? And he said, I'm never afraid to take to miss a shot because I haven't taken it yet. Mm-hmm. I'm not thinking too far ahead. I'm just thinking this is the next shot I'm going to take, as opposed to all the possibility. And I felt like that mindset, that approach, I feel maybe he had that before, in his bag, but I feel like a coach that comes from a more mindset focused as opposed to I don't know how to even say a material, physical, it's just about the game. That's it, and then miss the mindset, stuff there. So I feel like, your approach is similar to that. And I think that was my first experience playing for the Northern Arizona Suns of that approach. And then thankfully got to have some other coaches who were kind of more tapped in. It could be a progression of coaches, that more people are tapping into that as coaches have success. But, really, really beautiful points being made here. I feel like, and kind of what we're all being drawn to is that beautiful, just surrender to the game and the moment and the togetherness of it all, as opposed to like, forcing the moment.
Right. Yeah. I think your observations of Phil are really good. I think even you see the impact he had on Jordan, and then the impact he had on Kobe. It just feels very similar in their trajectories, where they were really outstanding players, but then tapped into something even more by surrendering to a different mindset or approach, and then also surrendering to the idea of the power of the team and the unit. So his impact was seen both on both those guys, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And it's hard to coach, and get that out of already such phenomenal players, like you're saying, like alphas. Part of the reason, why, we're here talking is because of Ballogy and what Ballogy is doing, and the emphasis that we are trying to put on player development. So we're introducing this 100-shot, 10-minute test for youth and amateur athletes, and even professional athletes, anyone to download and take, to create an environment where there's a standard to see where you measure up, to the world. And so it's a, first of its kind metric to, just assess shooting ability. And I wanted you to maybe add a comment to that in the form of a question of why you think it's important that, players along their journey to have access to pro level data like that. Why would you think that something like that is important?
Yeah, I think, for a couple of reasons. One, it's a very standard kind of operating procedure with the Suns in our pre-draft process. We would put everybody that we came in for a workout through 100-shot series, and it was kind of a grading metric to see where everyone was at. And I think that's pretty standard throughout the NBA that they do that. And so it's great to kind of get an even playing field across the country, get some comparables and data of everyone taking the same test. And so I think in that sense, it's a really valuable tool. The other part of that for me is for younger players to be exposed to the kind of work ethic or types of workouts or the metrics that older players, more experienced players, or better players are doing. I think that's the biggest adjustment from high school to college. Guys just embracing the amount of workload that's changed when you make that level jump, and then college to pros and how good they are in that kind of work. Where rookies, I worked with rookies all the time who were, doing shooting routines, and they could go miss 6 out of 8 shots and 7 misses in a row. And the veterans and the best players just aren't doing that. They're missing 2 or 3 in a row, and then they're right back on track. And so getting exposed to that kind of, I guess, the level of work and then the quality of work at a young age is really helpful.
That's awesome. I'm glad that you mentioned that, Bret, and see the value there, because our whole goal is to create, as Jordan said, an opportunity for there to be a display or a showcase of substance. In a world, especially now, with social media is so key. And I think that there's value to having a brand and showcasing your abilities and things like that. But I think if you are not someone with a highlight tape, or you are not, the top 1-2%, and you're looking to, for exposure, and you want to showcase your abilities, our goal is to create a platform for kids to do just that. And so I'm also curious, you're playing it, in college and having just a passion for basketball in general. Is this something, that could, just in transparency, is this something that could contribute in a positive way to a world where recruiting is a little bit, weird, and so there's, maybe some conversations happening on the back end to get players to come, and you kind of have to just play the game, the recruiting game, and it's a bit of a sales pitch at times. And so, I think that there's always going to be some of that in recruiting and things like that. But our goal is to move the ball in the direction of, if a kid can play and he's got work ethic, he's a canvas that you could work with, but he's at least got these things right here. That's our goal. Would you just speak a bit to that?
Yeah, you're right. Like, substance will eventually rise to the top. As we said, competition is going to reveal the truth. And so, it's great if you got a sales pitch and a highlight tape and marketing, and you might catch some eyes, but eventually the game is going to ask you, what are you capable of doing? And so being able to train yourself for those moments, and then B, show with some stats and some proven track record that you're able to either A, live up to that standard, or B, show that I'm going to fight like crazy to get to that standard. Nothing's going to stop me from keep working at it and keep trying. So if you can show you have that kind of resilience, I think all that is gonna rise to the top. And so from a coach's perspective, it's like, how do you cut through the noise and the flash and the flare and find the substance? And if you don't, you're going to pay for it later on.
Definitely. And I feel, with this kind of thing being available for kids growing and learning about the game, me and my dad would be in the gym shooting and not really know what we would get going on to the next level. We didn't know how to specifically prepare. And so that's what, we love about Ballogy and yourself being able to speak to that, because kids don't know. They want to know the things to be working on. They want to know, how hard do I need to be going? And so I think that this brings, a unique perspective, like you're saying, trickle down to the youth, because even with the Suns in pre-draft, you guys are doing 100 shots. With the Spurs, they do the exact same thing. And I think that that's, like you said, streamlined throughout the whole NBA. So if you want to, get there to the NBA, expect tests like these. So, Bret, we really appreciate your time today. Thank you for just your wisdom and knowledge on just the approach of the game. And, I'm even taking mental notes. I got to write them down later from some of the tidbits that you've given us. But we appreciate your time, Bret. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's an awesome conversation, and excited about what you guys are doing. You know, how you're going to help younger players and in their development process and training, and you're going to put a really powerful tool in their hands. So excited to see it come to fruition.
Well, thank you again, Bret. Just quickly, where can people find you? You know, a website. We've already spoken obviously about your book, Catching Confetti. They can purchase that. But anything else you'd like, you know, a listener to know so they can follow your journey?
Yeah, everything that we're doing is on ChampionShift.com. So it's SHIFT. You can find the book there. You can connect with me directly, sign up for a newsletter, get access to Catching Confetti. So everything there is at ChampionShift.com.
Sweet. Well, Bret, thank you again, man, for your time. And we'll look forward to following up. We've got Duncan Robinson on next week on Ballogy Sessions. He's going to be taking the test, so I'm confident he's going to crush it and set kind of the standard for all the rest of us to shoot for.
The bar will be set high for sure.
The bar is going to be set. So we're looking forward to that. Thanks again, Bret.
Awesome. Thanks.